In a bold and unexpected move, the Premier of Ontario has issued a stark warning. If tensions escalate in the ongoing trade war with the United States, he may resort to drastic measures, including cutting off electricity supplies entirely. This statement has sent shockwaves through both Canadian and American political circles, raising questions about the implications for trade, energy security, and international relations. The backdrop of this threat is a complex web of economic interdependence. Ontario, Canada's most populous province, is a significant supplier of electricity to the United States. The province's power grid is intricately linked with several states, particularly those in the Midwest. This interconnection has fostered a mutually beneficial relationship, where Ontario exports surplus electricity, especially during peak demand periods. However, the current climate of trade tensions has put this relationship at risk. The trade war, which has seen tariffs imposed on a range of goods, has created an atmosphere of uncertainty. Ontario's Premier, feeling the pressure from various sectors affected by these tariffs, has taken a hardline stance. He argues that if the U.S. continues to impose tariffs that hurt Canadian industries, Ontario must protect its own economic interests. The threat to cut off electricity is a dramatic escalation, one that underscores the seriousness of the situation. But what would such a move entail? Shutting off electricity to the U.S. would not be a simple switch to flip. It would require careful planning and coordination. The power grid is a complex system, and any disruption could have far-reaching consequences. Industries in the U.S. that rely on Ontario's electricity could face significant operational challenges. Factories could halt production, and businesses could suffer losses. The ripple effects would be felt across the border. Moreover, this threat raises questions about the legality and feasibility of such an action. International trade agreements and energy pacts govern the flow of electricity between Canada and the U.S. A sudden cutoff could lead to legal battles and diplomatic fallout. The Premier's office would need to consider the long-term implications of such a drastic measure. Would it truly serve Ontario's interests, or would it backfire? Public reaction to the Premier's statement has been mixed. Some citizens support a tough stance against the U.S., viewing it as a necessary measure to protect Canadian jobs and industries. They argue that Canada has been too accommodating in the past, and that it's time to stand firm. Others, however, express concern about the potential fallout. They worry about the impact on everyday life, as electricity is a fundamental necessity. A blackout could disrupt homes, hospitals, and essential services. The business community is also divided. Some industries that rely heavily on electricity imports from Ontario are anxious about the implications of a trade war. They fear that a cutoff could cripple their operations. On the other hand, some sectors, particularly those that export to the U.S., see an opportunity. They believe that a strong response could force the U.S. to reconsider its aggressive trade policies. As the situation unfolds, the Premier's office is under pressure to clarify its position. Will this threat be followed by concrete actions, or is it merely a negotiating tactic? The stakes are high and the world is watching. The relationship between Canada and the U.S. has always been complex, but this latest development adds a new layer of tension. In the broader context, this situation reflects a growing trend of nationalism and protectionism in global politics. Countries are increasingly prioritizing their own interests, often at the expense of international cooperation. The trade war between the U.S. and China has already shown how quickly relationships can sour. Now Canada finds itself caught in the crossfire. The Premier's warning could also have implications for future energy policies. If Ontario were to follow through on its threat, it might prompt a re-evaluation of energy strategies on both sides of the border. The U.S. may seek alternative sources of electricity, while Canada might look to diversify its energy exports. This could lead to a shift in the energy landscape, with long-term consequences for both nations. As the days pass, the tension continues to build. Diplomatic channels are likely to be tested as both sides navigate this precarious situation. The Premier's office may seek to engage in dialogue with U.S. officials, hoping to de-escalate tensions before they reach a boiling point. However, the rhetoric has already been set, and both sides will need to tread carefully. In the meantime, citizens on both sides of the border are left to ponder the implications of this standoff. Will the lights stay on, or will the Premier's threat become a reality? The uncertainty looms large, casting a shadow over the future of Canadian-American relations. As the trade war continues to unfold, it's clear that the stakes are higher than ever. The Premier's threat to cut off electricity is not just about power, it's about pride, protection, and the future of two nations intertwined in a complex relationship. The world is watching, and the outcome could reshape the landscape of North American trade for years to come. In conclusion, the Ontario Premier's warning is a wake-up call. It highlights the fragility of international relations in an era of rising nationalism. As both Canada and the U.S. navigate these turbulent waters, the need for dialogue and cooperation has never been more critical. The future remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the stakes have never been higher.